All right, here's my audience.
Modifying nature can have devastating consequences. Genetically modified organisms have been a controversial issue over the last several years. An article titled, 8 Reasons GMOs Are Bad for You states, genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, are created when a gene from one species is transferred to another, creating something that would not be found in nature. GMOs are in most of our food today. However, they have been proven to have negative side effects. Genetically modified or GM food is important to me because many people do not know how dangerous they are. I did a great deal of research to find multiple studies proving how dangerous they were and why. GM food has been proven to cause death, create environmental problems, and take away consumer choice. A solution I propose to the effects of GM food is the boycott of GM food products. 3 significant reasons GM food should be avoided is because they cause death, create superweeds, and eradicate consumer choice. Animals have died after consuming GM food. In a documented study of GM food called Health Risks, it describes what happened to the baby rats fed GM soy. Babies of female rats fed GM soy were considerably smaller and more than half died within 3 weeks. GM food has killed animals in multiple cases, yet humans still consume them. It is imperative that GM food be boycotted because of the health problems and death it has caused among animals. GM food has killed humans. Health Risks states death as an effect of GM food when it says that. A contaminated brand of food supplement called L-tridophan killed about 100 Americans and caused sickness and disabilities in another 5,000 to 10,000 people. The source of contaminants was certainly the genetic engineering used in its production. The engineering process to modify organisms was responsible for the deaths and disabilities in Americans. Death and disability are factors that should cause GM food to be avoided. GM food creates superweeds that lead to pollution. Superweeds are a weed which is extremely resistant to herbicides created by the transfer of genes from GM crops to wild plants. These weeds make it difficult to farm, and farmers now must spray even more toxic herbicides to kill the superweeds. An article titled GMO Food stated, in order to negate the emergence of superweeds, the use of a strong chemical increased almost 10 times the original amount. This herbicide increase is dangerous because of the diseases linked with the herbicides. An article titled 10 Reasons to Avoid GMOs explained their effects of GM food by stating, the superweeds not only cause environmental harm, but contain higher residues of toxic herbicides. Roundup, for example, is linked with hormone disruption, sterility, birth defects, and cancer. These superweeds leading to more toxic herbicides is dangerous because of the deadly diseases for humans. While a danger to humans, the overuse of herbicides causes pollution in the soil, water, and air. This pollution may cause harm to other organisms. GM food should be avoided because of the biological pollution and potential dangers it causes the environment. GM food contaminates pure plants and eradicates consumer choice. Farmers cannot control the spread of GM crops because of cross-pollination or failure to segregate seeds. The GM seeds then take away the genetic diversity of pure crops. The article, The Struggles of Farmers with GM Foods, was explained in the Genetically Modified Crops Harm the Environment article, which stated, the genetic contamination of pure crops effectively denies farmers and consumers the ability to choose to avoid growing and eating the genetically engineered crops and food. The contamination of the plants costs farmers and consumers more than just money. They lose their right to choose not to eat the GM food. The boycotting of GM food is needed to lessen the loss of pure crops and consumer choice. Without the boycott of GMOs, all of these negative effects would remain constant or could become worse. With so many different problems and dangers stemming from GM food, it is necessary to get involved in the solution. The solution I propose is the boycotting of GM food. This solution will require all of us to act now. The only way the future will change is if we work to change it. The boycott of GM food is a possible and achievable goal. Countries and parts of countries have already stopped using GM food. According to list of countries that ban genetically modified food, Japan has no GM seeds grown in their country. New Zealand has no GM foods planted in their country. And Austria and Hungary have bans on the sale and cultivation of GMOs. These places have a ban on GM food, not merely a boycott. If society boycotted GM food, the industry would be producing less of them because society would be consuming less of them. This would lessen every negative side effect GM food has on our earth. There are many ways to avoid purchasing GM food. According to how and why you should avoid GMO foods, you can always buy organic foods, avoid buying processed foods, look for the GMO-free and non-GMO labels, and look for grass-fed animals when using animal feed. More ways to help boycott GM food, according to how you can avoid genetically modified food, are shop at natural food stores, read the PLU label if available, buy directly from farmers, and know which foods are genetically engineered. Shown here is the label you should look for when trying to avoid the GMO food, so that non-GMO food project label. The PLU label mentioned earlier is shown with this diagram. The PLU label you want to look for is the 5-digit code starting with a 9, which means it is grown naturally and organic, so a non-GMO food. The one you want to avoid is the 5-digit code starting with an 8. This means the food is grown unnaturally and is genetically modified. GM food has caused death and created environmental problems while denying consumers their right to choose not to eat the GM food. Horrific side effects have caused animals and humans to lose their lives after consuming GM food. Undesirable environmental problems have emerged from the growing and making of GM food. Consumers deserve to know what they are putting in their body because it will affect them in the future. GM food has been proven to be dangerous, and society should consume less of them. A boycott of GM food is essential for the safety and prosperity of the earth to lessen the negative effects. Boycott GM food today, and remember, you are making a difference.